Good afternoon, DeSoto. My name is Latoya Fondren. I am the Marketing and Communications Coordinator here for the city, and this is the second episode of our Loving Her Story series, where I sit down and talk with amazing women in our community and let them tell you their story. So here I have a very, very special guest, and I'm sure you all recognize her, Miss Lynne Kornegay. Hi, Miss Lynne. How are you today?
Just very good, thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, I love it.
Absolutely. And so I want you to tell us your story. And as I said the very last time, I think that Miss Lynne can tell her story better than I can. So, Miss Lynne, I have a few bullet points here that I just
Okay.
want to touch bases on. So, you were one of the first 14 teachers that were hired with the DeSoto ISD.
The school already existed just for 8 grades, and they sent their high school students to Lancaster. And all of a sudden, just almost overnight, in 1956, they hit a 25% growth spurt and had to hire several teachers. And at that time, I had been in college at TWU in Denton, and I had married and married the son of a teacher out here. Lottie Waterman was the music teacher, and I had not finished college, but you could get your certification temporary and continue in school. And so that was what I asked to do. And I came out and met the superintendent. And at that time, there were 14 teachers in the whole school district. And what they needed was growth in the first through the sixth grade, which meant that they had a class and half of another one in each of those grades. And so they had a first grade, a first and second combination, a second grade, all the way up to sixth. And I had no idea which one of those I was going to get. But as it turned out, I had the fifth and sixth, and the superintendent's wife had the straight sixth grade. So I went to work for DeSoto ISD and was really excited, 21 years old, and I was working under the law at that time that as long as I was continuing going to school, I could renew my certification while I was teaching. Well, unknown to us, they changed that law that same summer. And even the superintendent did not know it until he got a letter about a month after school started saying that I had to have 90 hours. I had 89.
Wow, that is amazing. At just 21 years old?
Uh-huh. I
Wow.
had been going straight through, but oh my goodness, I cried buckets, and I went and sat in the superintendent's office while he called the registrar at TWU and said, "What can we do about this?" And they had a lot of back and forth talk about how they'll let some of these little old ladies stay forever, and they don't want to let these new young ones in with all these new ideas. But the registrar got on the phone, and my name is actually Ruby Lynn. And the registrar of the school, learned every student on the campus by their first name, whether they wanted to go by that name or not. And so he called me Ruby the whole time, and there was no changing him. So he said, "Ruby, are you taking any kind of classes now?" And I was taking one of those mail order things. Remember, we didn't have computers. This was back in 1956.
Wow.
And he said, "Are you taking something?" And I said, "Yes." How many of the lessons have you finished? Well, I was over halfway through it, and it was a 3-hour course. He said, "If you finished that much, and there have been 3 credits for it, I'd say you've earned at least 1 credit. I'll put it on your transcript, mail it to the state, and you'll have your certification," which he did.
Wow.
It just absolutely floored me. But I realized I wouldn't be a teacher today if it hadn't been for Dr. Emerson and Superintendent Hughes, because they took the valuable time to work the problem through. And I didn't see any way in the world they could work it. And frankly, neither did the superintendent.
Wow.
So we got that worked out, and I got my first check. I think it was a whole $150.
Wow, that was a lot back then.
Back
I'm
then
sure.
it was. I sure worked hard for it. But I had the combination 5th and 6th grade classroom.
Wow.
And it was quite a learning experience for me because I had double preparations. I had them for both grades. And the one thing that I could put the kids together for was math, and maybe on some things in English. But the rest of it, I got so tickled at the kids. They wanted to know what the other group was doing. And I'd get them started on something, and I'd go over to the other side of the room to work with the other kids. And I'd discover that the ones on the other side of the room were watching and following along, and they wanted to participate. Their hands were going up. And finally, they said, if we agree to do our work as homework, can we take part in their lesson? And they did that many, many times.
Wow.
And it worked out very, very well. And about the same time that we were opening this new school, we kept the 8th grade from the year before, and we had a 9th grade, which was the beginning of the DeSoto High School. So in 1956, we officially began DeSoto High School. And that first class graduated in 1960. Well, the superintendent and the teachers that were working with them sat down with them and said, okay, up until now, we've been the Panthers, and our colors blue and white. And we don't have a school song. So you are the class that gets to choose what you want. So they chose Eagle, and they chose Green and Gold. And Lottie Waterman, who was my mother-in-law and the music teacher, wrote words for a North Texas fight song, and it became what is now today the school song. And it still is. It carries her name on it, but the music came from that North Texas. It's general. I think it's a tune that's used at a lot of the colleges. But they were able to get that first group going. And about, a very short time after we got started, they had a grand opening of 2 important things in Dallas, and we got invitations. One of them was to the Sanger Harris Shopping Center in Oak Cliff. Good grief, it became Nolan Estes Education Center, and then was deserted for a while, and I'm not sure just what it is now, but it's still located right there on Beckley at 35. But Mrs. Waterman was invited to bring a singing group. So we took her high school group, and I think a few of the 8th graders to fill in, got them on a bus. Josh Gallagher, I may have his first name wrong, Gallagher Grocery Store, the only one in town at the time. He was on the school board, and he drove the school bus and took us down to Sanger Harris. And I'll never forget, we got there, told the kids where to meet us. These were teenagers. We got inside, and we didn't see a single one of our kids. They just disappeared. And finally, one of the employees said, "Are you looking for some teenagers?" And we said, "Yes, please."
We find them.
He said, I think you need to look at the escalator. These children had never seen an escalator before,
Oh.
and they were lined up, and they were going up and down and up and down and having a high old time. And we had to round them up so they could sing. But it was the other thing that had a grand opening was the Dallas Library that just recently has closed. But it was brand new, all the latest technology, everything was great, and our kids weren't allowed to use by checking out things because they did not live in Dallas, but I did at that time. So I went up and talked to City Joe Johnson, an author, published author, and also the children's librarian. And she told me about the grand opening that they were planning and gave me permission to check out books for my children. And so I would go down on the bus and I could get 25 books.
Wow.
And I would get some ideas from the kids of what they wanted, and I'd check them out. And and all the time that I did that, I never once had to pay a fine.
Oh, wow.
Those kids took care of those books. They wanted them.
I know that's right. Wow.
So they got that first round of books. And Miss Johnson said, do you have some kind of a project that is going on that might be finished in time for us to display it at our grand opening? And I said, why, yes, I'm sure we can arrange that. And so I went back to the school and talked to them about it. And this was one of those times when they wanted the two groups to work together, the fifth and the sixth grade. Fifth grade does American history. Sixth grade does world history. Well, we swapped it around a little bit and did the explorers. And one person, Marlon Blake, who grew up to be the president of my school board, and quite well known in DeSoto, but one of the brightest kids I ever taught. He had a woodworking set at home. And he said, Miss Lynne, I can bring my woodworking set up and we can get some pieces of wood to make the book, to put our explorer stories in. So he did that. And one of the fathers took some really nice wood and drilled the holes for the leather straps that we ran through it to hold it together. And then the kids did their drawing, and with supervision and a very nervous teacher, they wood burned into it their picture on the front. And then each group, we had, I think, about 15 stories, and they made and illustrated them. And we got it all done and all got put together and got Mr. Gallagher again. And he took us downtown to the opening of the Dallas Public Library. And our kids were so excited because here was their book and here was a card beside it, presented by Lynne Kornegay's class, DeSoto School, and fifth and sixth grade. And oh, they were so proud of that.
Wow.
And I was too. But it was a lovely opportunity that we got. It really was special.
Wow. So it sounds like you have a lot of impactful moments, and those kids they were just happy and just able to express their creativity, and it sounds like you gave them the space and the platform to do it, and you did it. You did it. Like, Miss Lynne, you getting on the bus and bringing back 25 books, that's probably like 25 pounds right there. That's why you're so strong. I see your muscles. And so, oh my goodness, like, I wish I had you as a teacher when I was in grade school. So that leads me to my next question. So, and you talked a little bit about who inspired you to become a teacher. Are there any other inspirational people in your life that inspired you?
Oh, absolutely. Ruby Young. As a matter of fact, that it's really pretty funny because she taught with the district 48 years. I taught 49, and one in my hometown of Lufkin. So I have 50 with the
Wow.
state of Texas. And Ms. Ruby was always one of the most prepared of any teachers. If you walked in her room, she had her flashcards and whatever she was reading to the class that day, and whatever tools she needed was just lined up right there on her desk. And her story was that she had never, ever missed a day of school. She missed her first day when I went out to visit my mother-in-law when I was still on the campus in Denton. And I went to school with her that day. And the very first thing that happened, Miss Young's mother got sick. And she had to leave school and go take her to the doctor. And the superintendent had me typing some things for him in the office so I wouldn't be bored. He came in and said, "How would you like to teach sixth grade?" And I said, "Well, okay. I hope there are some lesson plans." And he said, "Yes, I can guarantee that there is a good plan for what to do." And a lot of people think Miss Ruby always taught in the primary grades. I think she's best known for third grade. But she had an all sixth grade class that year because that was what they needed. And she left school, and I went in with the kids. At that time, I was majoring in, I think, music therapy. But I went back to school that afternoon and changed my major to
Wow.
education
Wow.
because I fell in love with her class. We just had so much fun, and we got the work done.
Wow.
It wasn't that we were just playing games, because you could lose the kids in a hurry that way. But we followed her lesson plans, and she was the one that her kids convinced me that's what I wanted to do. So, and it turned out that I came back and taught with her for a number of years.
Wow, that's amazing, Miss Lynne.
Mm-hmm.
And so having that inspirational person
Mm-hmm.
that you cross paths with
Mm-hmm.
got you to be able to create an impact in the lives of the youth.
Mm-hmm.
And so can you tell us what are some life lessons that you learned throughout your career and just in general that you can share with us?
Oh goodness, I think probably the number one lesson I learned very shortly after that first year. It wasn't in the first year, but there was a child that was absolutely the bane of my life. A little girl. Excuse me. And she was just really obnoxious. Absolutely. And I just got to a point where I thought, good grief, what am I going to do with this child? And I asked her mother to come up and talk to me. And I was all prepared, to tell her that I needed some help. Well, the first words out of that woman's mouth were, "Miss Lynne, I have to tell you something. I cannot love that child. She just will not let me love her." Boy, I did a turnaround the fastest you ever saw. That's all that was wrong with her. She needed someone that loved her, and I was fighting her on it, and I quit fighting her on it. I never did get to a point where I felt I was really close to her, but I did get to a point where we had a relationship, in the classroom, that we made it through that year. But I learned that you gotta love them. So many of them don't get a lot of it at home. And what they really don't get, in some cases, is a lot of attention. Mom and dad go to work before sunup and come home after sundown. It's true of a lot of them. and they have to make ends meet. Excuse me. And it's not a lack of wanting to on their part, but I was lucky enough in those early years. I had wonderful, wonderful parents. We didn't have phones in the room, but if I went to the office and made that call, I could have someone up there just in no time at all. It was amazing. Goodness, sorry.
Wow. Take your time. Take your time.
Got that frog. I do remember one really funny thing that mothers and fathers now would just not understand at all. The children voted on what they wanted for refreshments at their party.
Mm-hmm.
Now, remember, this was 1956. Would you believe it was a tie between tuna fish and peanut butter and grape jelly?
Wow. That sounds delicious.
And they wanted purple Kool-Aid.
Oh, my goodness.
The kind that used real sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my. It was normal then. And I never saw a store-bought cookie on the table for many years.
Wow.
Because most of the mothers at that time did stay at home. But, of course, as the years went by, that changed more and more.
So what would you say, Miss Lynne? So a lot of your students are ingrained in the DeSoto community. Like they are pastors of churches, and you have Miss Kathy Jones, who's the community relations manager for the city of DeSoto, and business owners and teachers. What would you say to them today? Just you remembering them as those little itty bitties.
Thank you for allowing me to work with you, because I had a ball.
Oh my goodness, that's so beautiful.
I had more fun than anyone. It's amazing what you learn from the children. You can't help it. Of course, everybody knows that you start to do something on the computer and some kid can say, Miss Lynne, would you like for me to show you a shortcut to do that?
Wow.
And sure enough, they would know exactly. Or if I had goofed up on something and maybe erased something or that sort of thing, they knew exactly what to do.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing.
And they thought it was funny. Of course, they also like to run into me in the grocery store and be able to reach up and get something that's too high for me.
You're like one of our DeSoto celebrities.
I've just been here a long time.
So speaking of celebrity status, Miss Lynne, I have something that I'd like to show you. And it may look very familiar to you and sound very familiar. So
yes, I do remember
You were the
that.
DeSoto ISD's 2017 Hall of Honor. You received that award for distinguished service. So can you tell us a little bit about this?
Well, the Hall of Honor for DeSoto has two parts. And one side is for educators and one side is for our graduates.
Okay.
So it was really funny. When that came about, actually Karen Pittman, one of my fellow volunteers at the DeSoto Police Department, and also a fellow teacher, but she was in the high school. She nominated me, and she came in just a year or two later in the Hall of Honor herself. But you have to go in by nomination and with a letter explaining. And it's really interesting because the teachers are on one list that's in the hall at, I don't know what they call the building, but it's the one that has the college classes, the above high school. And it has a cafetorium, and that's where they have this particular, it's a silver tablet-like thing that's on the wall. And they carve the names in it, the new ones, each year as they bring them in. But it's fascinating to me to see the teachers and then also the students I've taught that are on the other one. It's pretty funny because um, Fred Hart was our fire chief for years, and he was one of my sixth graders. And he and I came into the Hall of Honor the same night.
Wow.
And he, of course, was going in as a former student, and I was going in as an educator. And that's especially fun when you get those connections. But it is a privilege to get some recognition for work you did. You certainly don't work expecting it. It would be a waste of time if you did.
So how did that moment make you feel?
Appreciated. But I never will forget telling them that night that I wanted to let the parents know that I thanked them profusely for letting me work with their children, because I had more fun than anyone.
Wow, I know.
It's just amazing. We got some really interesting things going on. That first few years, we had a 25% increase in the number of students we had every year for several years. The state of Texas, in their great wisdom, decreed that you could have enough books for 10% more. And we kept having 25%, which meant that every year we started school with every grade level short of books. And so we had to get creative and do some things that didn't necessarily require everyone to have the same book. They could get their information in different places. And remember, we didn't have computers then. So that was a pain. But it was a terrific training because I learned to do things out of the box by necessity.
Wow, that's always a good thing.
And we had a lot more fun doing it that way. It just, the library, the school library at first was a classroom and the school, and it was very small. And that was why I was hauling books from the Dallas Public Library. When they opened the library, it was right across the street in what is now, well, it's now the senior center. And the senior center was, when it was the library, was really a fairly easy walking distance from Beltline School. And so I would designate a day, put out a note to the parents if they wanted to come to school on library day, come that day. And they would come up and walk with us, or they would come up and have their car and their kid and a few more that had permission could ride if they wanted to, but they liked to walk anyway. But we would walk over, and we had an hour, and that gave us time to walk over and be able to get their library cards. And that way all of my children had library cards.
Oh, that's so
And I considered that a real win because sometimes that didn't happen. They finally came up with a ruling that if you lived in Glen Heights, you had to pay $25 because you were not on the DeSoto tax rolls. And so I had a man who anonymously would pay for their cards. And he was a local man whose wife was active in the PTA, and she went to work on changing that law.
Wow. So your outreach to help children expanded outside of DeSoto into the surrounding cities. See, I told you, you are a celebrity. So, Miss Lynne, my last question for you is, what advice would you give to someone who is just starting out in their career or pursuing something new, a new passion?
If they wanted to be a teacher, I would want them to think long and hard about the fact that there is a whole lot more preparation involved than many people think. And they have to be willing to take on that load and have time for it, because it is difficult sometimes to work in enough time to get all the information you need. You gotta love kids. If you don't, find something else to do. There are so many other good professions, but stay away from the kids. They need, as I discovered way early, they need someone that loves them, even if sometimes they don't like them very much. And we do that with our own kids.
I don't have any kids just yet, but I'm sure I'll know how that feels one day.
I can remember more than one day when I asked a parent to come up and talk with a kid that they didn't like them very much at that particular time. But really and truly, make sure that you're going into it for the right reason. If you're looking for recognition, if you're trying to get it on your resume that you have done some teaching and you want to move from that into something else, be careful, because you're in a position to really mess with somebody's life. It's amazing to me how much power you hold sometimes over a decision that a child makes because of something you might have said very carelessly. And that has bothered me a lot, because I see young people, that think that, well, if I teach, I'll have the same days off that my kids do. And this would be really convenient. But there sure is a lot of work that has to go home.
And the work that you've done has done a tremendous amount of just helping. It has brought so much growth and positivity to the city of DeSoto, it sounds like. So, and I said that was my last question, but I lied, Miss Lynne. Please forgive me. This conversation, I am enjoying this, just soaking up all the history from you in this moment with our residents. What do you love most about being here in the city of DeSoto and knowing that your impact still lives on? It's still here. There are people that are still coming back and saying, Miss Lynne, thank you, thank you. What do you love most about being here in the city of DeSoto?
Well, you better not get too used to that, because it's not always that, but it is fun to, I can be in another country and have one, hello, Miss Lynne. And I'm thinking, oh, geez. And on the other side of a volcano in Hawaii and the Virgin Islands, I remember getting in a bus that we were going to share, a taxi. And I came nose to nose with another room mother from Amber Terrace, where I was for so many years. And it just, it's amazing. You run into people everywhere. I volunteer for the DeSoto Police Department since I've retired, and it's something I've enjoyed very much. And one of the things they do is sponsor a senior day, and they have a dentist come in and talk to them. They have a lawyer come in and go over some of the legal things that they might need to know. And one particular time that we did this, I was handing out lunches, and excuse me, a young man asked for the floor, and he said, "I want to recognize someone." He said, and so help me, I've forgotten his name. I'm Dr. So-and-so, a dentist, and that was why he was there. We had invited him, as a speaker. And he said, "I just wanted to let you know that Mrs. Kornegay taught me in 6th grade, and that was the year my father died." And he said, "I remember so well that she talked to me about the fact that her father was killed when she was 4 years old in a traffic accident, and that she understood what it was like to have to readjust everything in your family life and in your community life to continue without your father." And he said, "I remember so many things she said, and I just want to thank her." Well, I was a puddle in the middle of the floor. I, I did not even remember. It had been so long ago because he was one of the really earlier ones. But you don't realize the impact that you might have with even one conversation that you might have had. But that was something that I had shared with him, and he saw that connection very quickly. And I just thank the Lord every day that I have the opportunity to be able to do that. And I hope to goodness I didn't miss many opportunities because I know they were there. But their schools are having a lot of problems now, and
so,
just
Miss
a
Lynne,
whole lot of them.
what would you say is what is one life lesson that you can share with us?
I really think the love is so very important. We can't teach religion, but that doesn't keep you from loving them. And like I said, you don't have to like them. That's not on the list of things that are required. You don't have to like them, but you have to remember that I never will forget a young lady who grew up to be a teacher, by the way. It was one of the Dooley girls, and they were very well known in this community because their mother has been widely, in PTA. She's done so much work and so much community work. And I remember one day there was a teacher that was having a problem with a child in the classroom. And this little girl wrote a note. And when she left the classroom, didn't say a word, dropped it on the teacher's desk. And after everyone had left, the teacher read the note, and her name was Mrs. Clay, by the way. Some would remember her. And it said, "Remember, Mrs. Clay, Jesus was a teacher too." Wow. You better believe that one got shared in the teacher's lounge.
Yes, definitely.
Because that was a real perk that a child, a very unique child, of course, but she and her twin both went into the teaching profession. I think one of them's a principal and one of them's a teacher now.
Wow. Wow, Miss Lynne, you have so many amazing stories. Like I could listen to you all day, every day. And I do have some news to share. So somebody had a birthday last week. I don't know who
I
it is. They're
did.
sitting right by me. So I want to say happy belated birthday to you. 88 years.
88 years
Wow.
was Sunday.
Wow. Wow, I can't even imagine. That
I
is
can't either.
wow. And you look really amazing. You look absolutely beautiful for your
Thank
age. You
you.
look more like you're 21. But
Well, it's
wow.
Some days I feel 88 and some days I feel 21.
Wow. So give us some advice. What's the secret to keeping yourself up and as beautiful as you at the vibrant age?
The main
88?
thing is to stay busy if you go home and sit in a chair, I had another child tell me one day on my birthday. I never hid my age from the kids. I'd tell them, today's my whatever birthday. And one of my little girls said, you know, Miss Lynn, I always thought when you got to be whatever that age was, and it was a long time ago, you went home, sat down in the rocking chair, and stayed there. Mm. And I said, honey, you haven't met my Sunday school class.
So staying busy.
That's
staying
right.
Busy.
And there are so many worthwhile things to be done. If you don't like to deal with the public, there are plenty of things you can do. I was thrilled to death to hear that the police volunteers that do several kinds of things for the police department, we're certainly limited. We don't get to run around in cars with flashing lights and all this sort of thing. But we do a lot of things for the policemen themselves and the women, and also some things that can be done that are clerical that don't require us to know anything we're not supposed to know, and takes a little of the paperwork off of some of them. And we can, or just something as simple as folding brochures when they're having some kind of a meeting and that sort of thing. That's work that they could be doing something more worthwhile.
So you're still in the community creating impact, and you're helping our DeSoto police officers. Like, you are a jack of all trades. That is absolutely amazing, Miss Lynn. And I want to give you your flowers today. I want to give you more flowers and add to your bouquet of flowers. So I have something else that I would like to show you.
All right.
Remember earlier my papers that were going to fly away?
Uh-huh.
So, Miss Lynn, on behalf of myself and the city of DeSoto, I would like to give you this certificate of recognition for over 60 plus years of service to our community and your leadership, just being a part of the DeSoto family and creating an impact for in the past, in the present, in the future, being a beacon of light, going above and beyond. I just met you and my heart is already beating out of my chest, Miss Lynn. So again, on behalf of myself and the city of DeSoto and all of our wonderful residents and your students that you've crossed paths with, this is for you, Miss Lynn.
Oh, I will treasure it. Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. Very welcome. And so that wraps up our episode for today, Miss Lynn. I want to thank you so much for being here, for coming out, for sharing DeSoto's history, for sharing your story, who you are, how you got started, what you're doing now. You are a beautiful person in and out. And I'm just so blessed to have crossed paths with you and been able to get to know you. And I want to thank our DeSoto residents for watching again on our second episode of Loving Her Story series, where we feature inspirational women such as Miss Lynn right here in the city of DeSoto. Thank you guys again for watching. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye.